How to break into medical sales fast. I'm Dave Sterrett, your host of the Medical Sales U podcast. We started this program, and no, it's not a real university. It is a course. I've given lectures at Yale, Duke, University of Virginia, many universities. But this is a program. The whole purpose of this program that we have is for you to get a job, for you to reinvent yourself, to break into a new specialty. Kind of our focus, my biggest specialty is oncology, cancer. That includes diagnostics, that includes genetic testing, that includes specialty pharmaceuticals. Now, we do have people breaking into ortho and spine, breaking into those associate roles at your large medical device companies. But a lot of people come to us, they want to break into oncology. Why? Because someone they love was impacted by cancer, and also that's where the most money is, the most innovation, the most FDA approvals are in oncology. So I want to walk you through the mindset shift that you need to have if you want to get hired, here at the start of 2026. Because right now, Christmas is coming up and the game has changed. And most people are trying to play by rules that no longer work. And so let me just start with this. I want to share with you and remind you that I reinvented myself at 35. Don't get into this mindset, well, I'm too old, I'm too young. I was in a nonprofit ministry. I was teaching. My degrees were in religion and philosophy. And now I got to a point where I wanted to make more money. Why? Because my wife can stay at home. I have 4 kids. I want to be a great provider. And I was single at the time when I broke into this industry. And then I kind of reinvented myself and went into pharmaceuticals, in specialty pharma, in oncology. When I first started out, I was in the nonprofit space, and I remember making about $120,000 that first year. And that's not a lot of money for this was 10 years ago. But for me, that was a game changer, because prior to that, I was only making like 70. Then people started recruiting me. Big companies in spine, large companies in oncology. And I decided to go the path of oncology. I joined back in 2019 with Foundation Medicine. I saw the purpose of precision medicine, of helping cancer patients. But this all happened because I saw people out, a mentor, a guide, someone who would not just tell me what to do, but walk with me step by step along the way, refer me, coach me, and also critique me. Here's the thing that many of you are missing. You're hardworking, you care about people, you have a lot of good things, but you do not know how these rules are changing. And you're stuck because maybe when you landed a job 4 or 5 years ago, it wasn't, you just applied, or maybe you just had an internal referral. And because of that internal referral, you got the interview. And now you're trying those same methods and it's not working. But I want to say that in our program at Medical Sales U, people are reinventing themselves, and you're going to hear from them. They're going to be our guests on the podcast. Kanika, she moved from the Caribbean to Dallas, Texas. 2 kids, new city, new network, no network. And now all of a sudden there's new people. And she jumped into this program. She followed it step by step. She landed a role making about $95K. She wasn't satisfied. She stayed in our program. She landed a job making $200,000. And you're going to hear her story. And you're going to meet people like her when you join our program. Sydney, she was an oncology nurse in South Carolina. She joined our program, and now she's an oncology clinical educator for a major pharmaceutical company. I want to talk about Christy. Christy came to me, and she, lives in Texas also. I live in Columbus, Ohio. but I have a lot of connections in Texas. But Christy had experience. She was a national sales director, and she wanted to reinvent herself because she knew the rules were changing. And so she joined Medical Sales U. And guess what? She landed a great job. You're going to hear her story as well. You're going to meet her when you join our program. Dr. Kevin Maggiano, he's a graduate of Johns Hopkins University, and he wanted to understand the business healthcare. He wanted to understand pharma, medical device. He joined our program. Rue, she had experience in trauma, working for companies like Stryker. And yet she wanted to get into a new specialty. She was a personal trainer. You will hear her story. Now she's working. She did our program. She joined. 2 months later, she has a job working for one of the large oncology diagnostic programs. And then, I'm just going to say here in a couple of weeks, you'll hear from our friend here in Columbus, Ohio, Corey Stewart. He was a nurse. He made it to the final rounds multiple times. He kept hearing no. And he joined our program. He did exactly what I told him to do. And now he's working as a Pfizer representative. All these stories are proof that experience is not the barrier. It's a mindset. So here's the question. What is the mindset that I'm teaching those in my program? And I'm going to teach you right now. I'm going to give you a lot of free content. Now, I'm going to be your guide and your mentor for those of you who join us, but I want to give you just some mindset shifts. One, you must be coachable. A lot of people think they're coachable because they have an aunt, they have a friend who is in this industry, they grab coffee with them, maybe get that internal referral. But that coach or that friend or that aunt or whoever is not with them each step of the process. Why? Because they're busy. And then you're just kind of doing the same things you've tried over and over. That friend, that so-called mentor is saying, you got this. You don't need to pay for coaches. I got a job right out of college. You just got to keep doing what you're doing. And guess what? It's not working. We need to have someone who will be able to speak truth to us. When I got into the industry, my first ride along, I'll be honest, it was a disaster. I walked into a physician's office. I was unprepared. A nurse manager shut me down in about just a few seconds. And I remember my manager, Bud Bender, he let me have it in the car. No sugarcoating. He told me exactly what I did wrong. And then he told me, we have to practice it. I want you to run through your presentation, practice it. No, go out there, come back in. You got to practice it. Go back in, you need to practice it. Some of you need to be on my call. You need me to coach you to say, run through your story again. Tell me about yourself. What's your greatest strength? What's your greatest weakness? Because you'll have to answer these questions confidently. And that's what we do in our program. So you need someone to really walk you through these answers. Now, you can use AI to help you prepare, but record yourself. If you're not willing to learn, if you're not willing to put yourself out there, record yourself, this field will eat you alive because you will have to succeed in virtual calls. Right now, looking at the camera, you will lose to someone who is more hungry, who's willing to put themselves out there, and you have to be willing to change. You have to change with the times. Some of you, I look at your LinkedIn profiles, and they're just not good. And the way you use it is not good. Everything is ChatGPT. Those long M-hyphens, that's fine to an extent, but you have to let your authentic voice come through. And here's the key. You have to learn how to do video interviews. Why? Because in these jobs, you will have virtual interviews. And some of you, your background is cluttered, cameras up your nose, and we will coach you how to shine in this process. Are we going to put you in scrubs and have you in the operating room so you can get some good pictures like that? No, we're not going to do that. Why? Because every single company is going to be different And here's the deal. And you know that's a reference to my competition, Medical Sales College. The reason I started Medical Sales U is because there's a lot of jobs outside of ortho, outside of spine, and there's even surgical positions in surgical technologies. There's positions in oncology. There's positions in diagnostics, precision medicine. And here's the key. A lot of these coaches out there, they're negative towards pharma. And here's the truth. They don't have the oncology experience I do. But guess what? The most money is going into oncology. And I'm going to help you. So number 2, you have to be curious. Curiosity separates the average candidates from the great ones. People apply to oncology positions and they say, Dave, I just can't break in. So I ask them, I say, hey, can you explain to me what is the clinical trial? Okay, what is the clinical trial that received the FDA approval? And so they interview without understanding the FDA approval. Now, I'm just giving you all this because some of you probably aren't going to enroll in my program. You'll keep trying to do it on your own. And I get that, but I'll just give you some more free tips. When you show up to that interview, do you understand what is the clinical trial of that drug that you want to sell, that you're interviewing to sell? You're like, well, the drug wasn't listed. Well, if you show up to that interview and you don't know what product you're interviewing for, you're not going to get the job. I mean, there's like a 98% chance you will not get it. Why? Because the other people interviewing, they figured it out. And if you can't figure it out what the drug is, how are you going to figure out the doctor's schedule? How are you going to figure out the nurses that will open up the door for you or the pharmacists? So people show up to these interviews without knowing primary and secondary endpoints. You have to know that. People often have no clue to who the competition is, which physicians will likely prescribe this. You cannot wing it in oncology. You cannot wing it in diagnostics. You cannot wing it in specialty pharmaceuticals. Let me just say this. You break into specialty pharmaceuticals, and it might be a little bit harder than breaking into device. Device, a lot of our people, the stepping stone for most is that associate role. That's not a bad thing. You can still make $120,000 as an associate. Now your base may be 80, you get a bonus. Sometimes you'll only get paid like $75K, but you have to see that as a stepping stone. In pharma, our members are often breaking in with a base around 115. And their commission on top of that is like another 40. So that takes them at like 155. Now, a couple years experience, you want to get into oncology, your base is going to be way higher, right? We've had people, with bases of like 180, making over $200,000. This industry moves fast, and you have to be curious. All right, number 3, you must collaborate. And in the interview, don't just say, well, I work well as a team. Give specifics. Use that STAR framework. Talk about the specific situation, T the task, the specific 8 action steps that you took, and are the results. So medical sales is not solo. Okay, you're going to be working with the nurse navigator, right? And you'll be working with the oncology, clinical educator. You need the billing team, right? And it's likely you'll be working with like a field reimbursement manager, someone who's, working with access. Okay, and then the doctor is going to ask you something off-label. You can't answer that. And you have to know about your medical science liaison. You have to kind of understand a little bit. Now, there's going to be things you can't talk about, but you need your key account manager. Do you understand these roles? Do you understand what each of them do? You have to. And I know I'm talking right now about specialty pharmaceutical sales, because when you interview, it's so important that you reach out to these people. You reach out to the account manager. You reach out to the field reimbursement manager. You start to understand the struggles, especially if there's a vacancy, right? What is the biggest challenge? Why did the other rep leave? And if you're going to come into this situation you will have to work with these people. You'll need to also be able to gain trust from physicians. People who break into medical sales or pharmaceutical, they're the people that know how to build relationships. And here's a question I just have. Do people like you? Like when you're in conversations, do you take initiative? Do you take an interest in others? When you join this industry, your success depends on how well you support the whole care team. That's why we have some nurses that do extraordinarily well. And sometimes I get on a phone call with a nurse, and I remember one nurse, and she was thinking about joining our program, and she wanted to prove to me how tough she is in the OR, how much grit she has, and how much better she is than these other reps that she talks to. But the whole time she talked about herself, her grit, how tough she is. I'm like, you know what? If you're so tough and you have so much grit, I'm thinking, why are you so poor? Why are you so unsatisfied? Right? It's like, you don't have to prove that you're tough. And you know what's interesting is it used to be the stereotypical athlete, jock guy that you hear this from, how tough they are, how much grit they have. And now I hear it from women, but it screams insecurity. And that's going to come through in the interview. And I can help you how to come across as confident, not cocky. Confident, not cocky. And how do you do that? Well, you have to ask questions, but you must build confidence through preparation. So rather than saying that I'm so tough and grit, just demonstrate it. Understand that you know the product and then ask curious questions. So confidence is not arrogance. Confidence is not pretending. Confidence is not just positive thinking. It comes from being prepared. You know the data. You know the competition. You know the patient's journey. You know which doctors are going to be most likely to order. And when you know the questions to ask the hiring manager, you're prepared. When they ask you, tell us your story. When they ask you in that interview to walk us through the competition, you sit differently, you look differently, and they feel it because you're prepared. And so I just want to share one more thing here, okay? And I want to give you this acronym of H.E.A.R.T. H-E-A.R.T. Do you have humility? Combined with energy. E, the H is humility. E, energy. A, active listening. R, resilience. T, trust. This is the character side of success. Humility means that you do not pretend that you know everything. But you're not going to just say, I can do it. You're going to be confident, but you also combine that with the E, energy. It means that you lift the room when you walk in. You're positive. Active listening means that you hear what people are actually saying and you repeat the last few words. You're not just waiting for your turn to speak. Resilience means that you push through rejection. Some of you act tough, but when you get rejected, you don't get back up. Though a good person falls 7 times, he gets back up again, says the old proverb. What about you? Have you gotten rejected by 7 companies recently? If not, you're not applying enough. Have you been ghosted by 7 people on LinkedIn? You probably haven't reached out to people. Are you adding 20 people a day? Are you meeting with one person every week for coffee? When you are you waking up early, like at 4:30 or 5 o'clock? We're talking about you getting a job that's going from like $60K to $120K. Some of you are making $120,000 and you're like, I need to make over $200,000. But you're trying to do the same things you were doing to make $120. But you have to have those abilities. When you combine the 4 C's, we talk about, confidence, curiosity, collaboration, right? We talk about those being coachable. When you have those things with these heart traits, you become the kind of person that every single hiring manager wants. Now, let me just talk about this middle class mindset. The middle class mindset is when you talk to your friend who's really middle class and they're going to talk you out of that you can't make $200,000. The middle class mindset depends a lot on the degrees. And let me just say, if you want to be a medical doctor, you have to get the degree. If you want to be an engineer, you have to get the degree. But some of you are working on these like masters of healthcare or MBA programs. You don't need any of that. No one cares what university you went to. This middle class mindset says that university is the answer. And listen, there's not the return on investment. I'm not anti-education. I have 3 degrees. I have 2 master's degrees. I've given lectures at places like Yale, Duke, University of Virginia, LSU. But the world is really changing. And what I mean by that is that there is this rise of coaches. There's a lot of coaches out there. You have to do your research on us. I would say that let me just share with you a few things. There's a lot of good coaches out there, but I think the reason you should consider me is because of the success track record. No one's getting into oncology jobs. No one's getting in at the salaries that our members are. We're talking about $150,000. Did you know that Harvard MBA students pay $150,000? And almost a quarter of them still do not have jobs 9 days after graduation. That's a lot. Another reason to consider me is this. Let me just pause here for a second. Another reason to consider me is I was a Wall Street Journal bestselling author. I wrote 9 books way before AI. There's a lot of there's a lot of AI crap out there. And I want you to use AI. We're going to coach you through that, but we're also going to coach you that it's not so obvious that it's AI when we go into your resume, when we go into your LinkedIn or your brag book. So that when you present on your 30, 60, 90, it's not overly generic. You really understand the product you're selling. You understand the territory. And we're going to go over this in detail. But some of you have this middle-class mindset, and you have maybe it's a parent, a spouse, someone who says, you don't need that. But let me ask you a question. Do they understand that the rules have changed, that you can't just go in making $200,000 with the same methods that you did 5 years ago? And also, how much is that person making? Because how are they going to coach you in something that they themselves are not doing right now? And that's why you have to consider us. We're helping people right now. A lot of people are taking on more and more debt. And here's the thing. They feel comfortable taking out school loans, car payments. Why not invest in yourself? Pay a few $1,000s for something that's going to increase your pay by $68,000. That's on average. We have people going from making like $60,000 to $128,000. We have people reinventing themselves. People that have been stuck at like $120,000, $150,000, now making over $200,000. Kanika, you will hear her story. She came to the United States and she said, nobody looks like me. And it's true. You talk to her, she's got an accent. It's true. The FDA and the challenges of Dallas being brand new, there's challenges. But I believed in Kanika. She's a wonderful person. We actually, you'll hear her story in detail, but she did everything I told her to do. And she landed a job making $200,000. First year in America. What's your excuse? What is it? Who are you listening to? They're saying the market is so hard. The market is so challenging. And yet people will look at medical sales and they'll say, you can't do it. let's just keep going here. I want you to be open to a coaching program. Let's have a phone call. Call me. I'll personally talk to you for a few minutes. I'll give you 15 minutes. And I'm going to encourage you to rethink this middle-class mindset. Our program is going to have people who are experts in spine and diabetes and reimbursement. We have a whole team who's coming in here. We have oncologists who are going to teach. And we're going to have great guests. And we're getting better and better at this. And the whole purpose is not just for our course. It's for you to change your life. It's for you to get into a career in which you feel like you're making a difference. I mean, we're talking about cancer patients that years ago had no hope. And now with the product that you sell, is adding 4 years to their life. Think about that. That's another grandchild. That's a couple other graduations. Maybe that's a grandchild's wedding. And because of the product that you sold, they're going to be around with us longer. It gives us more time. And I think in some disease states, sometimes you see that complete response. You see multiple myeloma, you see where we've come and where we're going. I mean, like 15 years ago, you saw patients not living that much if they had this disease, and now they're living 10 plus more years. You get to be the one allowing this physician who's so busy, allow this physician to learn about this new drug. And so I'm excited for those of you who want to join our program. If you don't want to join our program, I get it. Sometimes you have to count the calls and you have to think about it before you jump into something like this. I think there's wisdom in not just jumping in without counting the calls and really being sure I want to do this. And that's true with any decision in life. We want to be decisive, but we have to do our homework first before we make a big decision like this. And so hopefully in this call, I've given you a few things that you can implement: being coachable, collaboration, curiosity, right? When we talk about these skill sets, that these will help you even if you decide not to go into medical sales. Maybe you want to just stay being a teacher. That's fine. Can we help you as a teacher to be more curious? To ask better questions to your students? What if for you, your calling is, you know what? This is fine, but my calling is still to stay as a nurse. And I want to respect that, because to you, money's not everything. But can you implement these things? Curiosity, collaboration, can you get better at them? So my desire is, I don't expect everybody to join this program, but hopefully I've added some value for those of you, even if you decided that this isn't best for you. All right. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us. We want to break free. You have to shift your mindset. You have to invest in yourself and allow me to be your guide, and also the whole team, right? The people that break in, they get a guide, they stop doing it alone, they learn the clinical trial. The people who break in, they prepare their 30, 60, 90, they build their business plan, they follow our 12-step system, and I'll work with them, and they're in a community. And that's why they get the results. So join us. I'll just ask you 3 questions here. And again, I want to respect those who want to stay in your profession, because we need great nurses. We need great teachers. I was a teacher, okay? But for some of you, you're just stagnant. You hate your job. You want to make more money. You want more freedom. You want in a new specialty. You're already in device. You're already in pharma, but you want to break into something new like oncology. So let me ask you these questions. 1, do you want to be in the same job in the same income a year from now? Yes or no? 2, do you really believe that doing things the old way, the way that you've been doing it, will create a new result? Yes or no? And then 3, are you open to getting a guide, a coach, someone who knows the industry, someone who understands oncology, someone who understands both device and pharma, someone who can shorten your path and can teach you the rules? This is your moment right now. We're going to get started. This is, enjoy your Christmas, have fun, but let's get started right now. Lock in this price because I see what the competition charged, and we're going to raise our prices. Let me just say that we will raise them. So lock it in now, right now, early in 2026. Michael Jordan kept getting knocked to the floor by the Detroit Pistons before he won a championships. The Pistons beat him up physically. Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer, Isaiah Thomas. And back then, the NBA was physical. They beat him down year after year. The Chicago Bulls hired Phil Jackson as a coach. Michael Jordan was the leading scorer in the NBA. He was the best player, and yet the Bulls were getting beat, and they brought in this new coach. And yet, Michael Jordan said, I'm tired of taking the punishment. I'm going to I'll have another coach, Tim Grover. Okay, not just Phil Jackson, but another coach for this one area of strength, of weights. Michael Jordan got stronger. Okay, and now everybody lifts weights now. But this was the 80s, late 80s. No one was doing it. Michael Jordan would lift weights on game days. And so he changed his mindset. He strengthened his body. And even the best of the best hired a coach, another coach, to help in this area of weakness. What's your area of weakness? How good are you on camera of answering these questions? How good are you at discerning the clinical trial? How good are you at sending messages on LinkedIn and not getting ghosted? If you want to reinvent yourself, you have to hire a coach. And a lot of times, great leaders will look out and say, okay, what coach is working? And guess what? Kobe Bryant, he wanted to be like Michael Jordan. He hired that same coach, Tim Grover. So it begins with a decision. Be coachable, be curious, collaborate, be confident. And this Christmas, okay, invest in yourself. You're going to be forking out money. Ask your parents to buy this course for you. Not a car, not a car, not another degree. Invest in Medical Sales U. All right, thank you so much. You guys have a great Christmas. If you're trying to break into medical device or pharmaceutical sales, or maybe you're ready to reinvent yourself into a new specialty like oncology, our program, Medical Sales U, can help.
I'm extremely grateful for Dave Sterrett and his program, Medical Sales U.
I'm now making $60,000 more than I was as a pharmacist.
I highly recommend the program. I just landed an incredible dream job.
Our members come from every background: nurses, pharmacists, teachers, athletes, and they're breaking in fast, averaging $151,875 in 11 and a half weeks. Many are earning over $200K. The industry is changing lives. You can change lives. Check us out at Medical Sales U. Invest in yourself, and let's get you in the game.